So during the Biden administration, they made a rule that in credit reporting, you're not allowed to add medical debt to that credit report. So people's credit scores wouldn't be hit if they had medical debt. But apparently, a judge nixes a Biden rule in order to keep medical debt on credit reports. It seems like they're reversing the rule. Unpaid medical bills will remain on their credit reports after a federal judge last week vacated a Biden-era Consumer Financial Protection Bureau rule that would have removed such debt. Judge Sean Jordan of the U.S. District Court of Texas, Eastern District, found that the rule exceeded the Bureau's authority under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, agreeing with the arguments of two industry associations, which had filed a lawsuit against the rule that was later joined by the Trump administration. The court found that every major substantive provision of the medical debt rule exceeded the CFPB's authority, Jordan, a President Donald Trump appointee, wrote in his opinion. The rule, which the Bureau finalized shortly before the Biden administration left office in January, would have removed an estimated $49 billion in medical bills from the credit reports of about 15 million people. It would have also banned lenders from using certain medical information in loan decisions. That seems like a good thing to me. The rule would have also prohibited lenders from using medical devices such as wheelchairs or prosthetic limbs as collateral for loans and barred them from repossessing the devices if patients were unable to repay those loans. Oh my God, I can only imagine the idea of the idea that in the United States of America in 2025, somebody has to go on layaway, has to take out a loan to get a prosthetic leg for the accident they got, the car accident that was no fault of their own, and that they can't finish off the payments, and then the company who made the leg is going to come and repossess it. The whole idea of any of this, the whole concept of this happening in the United States is disgusting, and there's absolutely no reason for it, right? If we have the ability to not have this be the case, it is a choice. It is an active choice for us for this to be the way it is. It seems beyond disgusting. Like, I'm physically disgusted at the idea of that. It is not that difficult or expensive. It is not like a tremendous amount of resources to create a prosthetic leg, all right? I understand there's lots of engineering and lots of R&D, and it does cost money to produce them, and that they're complex devices, but it's not like you're talking about 1 million tons of steel or something, right? It is a prosthetic leg. Like, come on. Why would you want to... Who does reversing that rule help? Who does reversing the rule that you can't repossess these medical devices like wheelchairs and prosthetic limbs from people who haven't finished off their payments? Who does this help? Does it help the disabled people, the handicapped people, the people who are needing to use a wheelchair, needing to having to use a prosthetic arm or a leg? Is it those people that's going to be helped by this change? Or is it going to be the millionaires and billionaires who own those companies who are maybe missing out on a small, tiny fraction of profit? Not enough to make their business unsustainable, mind you. No. These businesses are still there. The people who own them are still extremely rich. The people who work in them are still getting paid. These businesses are still very successful and have a very solid place in our economy and aren't going anywhere. But they could make a little bit more money. I guess this rule is keeping them from making a little bit more money. I guess that is the most important thing, right? Is ensuring that these executives, it's maximizing their profits, right? If anything is even perceived as slightly unfair to them, that's a big no-no. Those with medical debt on their credit reports could have received a 20-point boost on average in their credit score, the Bureau said when issuing the rule in January. Also, the rule was expecting to lead to the approval of about 22,000 additional mortgages every year. Medical debt on credit reports is not a good predictor of a person's ability to pay other loans, the Bureau's research has found. Plus, healthcare bills often contain mistakes, which can lead to extended battles between patients, health insurers, and medical providers. I'm going to ask the exact same question as I am about the rule change regarding repossessing certain wheelchairs and certain medical devices, right? Who benefits most? Who benefits from this rule change, reversing the exemption of medical debt on credit reporting scores? Who benefits most from this? Is it the people that find themselves in medical debt? I would argue almost in all cases through no fault of their own, And I would argue because we don't have any sort of public healthcare system in the United States, a la any other first world country. But I ask the question, who benefits from this most? Is it going to be the people who have this medical debt and are struggling to get a car loan or struggling to get a house loan or maybe even struggling to get into a certain type of apartment or maybe even employment, maybe struggling to get a certain type of job because some employers do look at credit scores because they have this medical debt on their, through no fault of their own, ostensibly medical debt on their credit report? Who's going to benefit? Is it going to be those people who are being harmed by the way medical debt was reported? Or is it going to be the millionaire and billionaires who always seem to benefit from these sorts of changes? Is it going to be the lenders who can now give higher interest rates and more restrictive loans on these people than they otherwise would have? Is it going to be them? It's so hard to determine who benefits most in this. Is it going to be the millionaires and billionaires at the top of the insurance industry? Or is it going to be the average person with medical debt? It's a really hard question to answer, huh? It's extremely hard to answer. Also, if the Bureau themselves are coming out and saying medical debt on credit reports is not a good indicator of not a good predictor of a person's ability to pay back other loans, that seems like more than enough justification to do the change that the Biden administration implemented. I just can't think of any steelman reasonable justification for reversing this rule. The only justifications, the only steelman arguments I can come up with are sort of what I was alluding to, right? The idea that like putting as much money in the pockets of these millionaires and billionaires who run all these companies who are at the top of these industries is the maximum priority of this administration. There are no altruistic, people-centered changes that they're doing. Republican and industry pushback. Republican lawmakers voiced opposition to the rule soon after it was proposed last August. Several House Republicans wrote in Rohit Chopra, the Bureau's director at the time, to express their serious concerns that the proposed rule would weaken the accuracy and completeness of consumer credit reports. They argue, but it's not affecting it's not going to weaken the accuracy and it's not going to weaken the accuracy and competitiveness of consumer credit reports because, as the Bureau themselves just stated, medical debt on credit reports is not a good predictor of a person's ability to pay back other loans. So the idea that you have some sort of serious concern that this is going to weaken the accuracy and completeness of consumer credit reports is literally going against what the Bureau themselves are saying how it works. They argued that it would undermine underwriting processes, increase risk in the financial system, and harm access to and the affordability of credit for consumers, particularly lower-income Americans. America's financial system is the best in the world because it is based on a full, fair, and accurate credit reporting system, Dan Smith, the association's CEO, said in a statement. Information about unpaid medical debts is an important element in assessing a consumer's ability to pay. This is the right outcome for protecting the integrity of the system. America's financial system is the best in the world because it is based on a full, fair, and accurate credit reporting system. Well, my understanding is that the credit reporting system as it is now was basically invented in the 80s, that prior to the 1980s, we didn't really have a unified, nationwide credit reporting system like we do now. There was credit scores, and they did exist in some capacities, but my understanding was it wasn't so much for individuals, that it was for companies, for organizations, for governments, and that the idea of applying it on such a micro level to an individual wasn't necessary, right? And to say that none of these people would argue that like the financial system of the United States or our economic abilities were bad pre the 1980s, right? The United States got to where it is somehow, and we saw the biggest economic boom we ever saw in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And that was well before the credit score system was ever implemented on a micro level like we see now. So this is just a weird assertion that it's the best because of the credit reporting system. Well, I would argue that it was really good before the credit reporting system. So to argue that it's good because of it, it doesn't make any sense. It's ahistorical. And it's also like the association CEO, like big shocker the association CEO is going to be making facetious claims about the role the credit reporting system plays in our overall economy and financial system. Why would anybody want to listen to what this guy has to say? Why would anybody care what Dan Smith, the Association of Credit Score People, has to say about the role credit score plays in the financial system? Why would you have any reason to think that he's doing anything but puffing things up, but fluffing it? The judge affirmed that the CFPB does not have the ability to write law, that it is the job of Congress. ACA International, which represents credit and collection professionals, said in a statement. A group of 30 Democratic and independent senators, however, say the rule would have helped consumers without reducing the accuracy of credit scores. They wrote a letter to Russell Vought, the Bureau's acting director, requesting information about its decision to ask the court to vacate the rule, including any communications with debt collection agencies. The industry has also taken steps to reduce the impact of medical debt on people's credit histories. In 2022, the three largest credit reporting agencies, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, announced they would remove nearly 70% of medical debt from consumers' credit reports. The agencies no longer include medical debt that went to collections on consumer credit reports once it has been paid off. That eliminated billions of dollars of debt on consumer records. So it seems like even the credit reporting agencies themselves took in the CFPB, or is it the CFPB that said that? Took in the understanding that medical debt on credit reports is not a good predictor of a person's ability to pay off the loans. So it seems like that is such a well-known principle that even the credit bureaus themselves are implementing it. In addition, unpaid medical debt no longer appears on credit reports after the first year, whereas the previous grace period was 6 months. That gives people more time to work with their health insurers or providers to address the bills. And medical collection of debt of less than $500 is no longer included on credit reports. Plus, FICO and Vantage score reduces the degree to which unpaid medical bills impact credit scores. So yeah, this is just another one of a long string of changes and rulings and policy changes that this administration is making that to me seem very clearly helping one group over the other. And if we're going to differentiate these two groups, it's the rich owner class and it's everybody else, right? I can't keep coming back to the fact that so many of the rulings that this administration is going with, some of the ideas that they're rolling with, seem to only benefit the most wealthy, the most connected, the most powerful of people, the heads of industries themselves, but at the expense of what? Everyday people, like this medical debt change, right? This doesn't... The change that the Biden administration put in, exempting medical debt from being put on credit reporting stuff, was both logical. It was both logical in that there was real justification for it, right? The Bureau themselves came out and said medical debt on credit reports is not a good predictor of a person's ability to pay for other loans. So it made sense from a logical perspective, but also from like a moralistic good thing to do perspective, right? You're helping out. And yes, very slightly at the expense of these large loan-based, credit reporting institutions, very slightly at their detriment, you are helping these people who are under medical debt, most of which I would say probably not their fault. But a reversal of this change does, like I said, it doesn't help regular people in any way, shape, or form. There is no steelman argument for how this helps the regular, everyday person with medical debt or whatever. This only helps the heads of industry, the executives, the insurance companies, the millionaires and billionaires who seek to make profit off of this sort of change.